A billionaire couldn't sleep, so he went to his kitchen for warm milk at midnight. But what he found hiding in his pantry made his blood run cold. A small child, tears streaming down her face, eating food from his trash. Her whispered words would change his life forever. "Please don't tell Mama. I was just so hungry." What happened next shocked everyone who knew him. Marcus Hartwell hadn't visited his mansion's kitchen at midnight in years. The tech mogul worth $4.2 billion usually had staff handle every need, but tonight insomnia drove him downstairs for warm milk, something his late mother used to make him. The marble floors felt cold beneath his bare feet as he padded through the darkened hallways. That's when he heard it, the faint rustle of movement coming from the kitchen pantry. His first thought was an intruder. His hand instinctively reached for his phone to call security. But then came a sound that stopped him cold, a child's whispered voice, trembling with fear. Marcus pushed open the pantry door to find a small girl, no more than 8 years old, crouched behind boxes of pasta. Her dark eyes were wide with terror, and in her tiny hand she clutched a half-eaten dinner roll from tonight's trash. Crumbs dotted her worn nightgown. "Please don't tell Mama," she whispered, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks. "She'll lose her job. I was just so hungry." Marcus felt his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. For a moment, he couldn't move. This child, this fragile little soul, was eating garbage in his home, a mansion with 5 refrigerators stocked with gourmet meals prepared by a private chef. The contrast hit him like a physical blow. He slowly knelt down, making himself smaller, less threatening. The girl flinched, pressing herself harder against the wall. "Hey, it's okay," Marcus said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not angry. What's your name?" The girl hesitated, her thin fingers still gripping the stale bread. "Sophia," she finally answered, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry, sir. I know I shouldn't be here. Mama says I should never bother you." Marcus noticed how her collarbones protruded sharply beneath her nightgown, how her wrists looked impossibly thin. "Sophia, when did you last have a proper meal?" he asked gently. She thought for a moment, her young face creasing with concentration. "Mama brought home some rice on Tuesday, but that was for both of us, so only had a little bit. She always gives me more than she takes." It was Friday. This child had been surviving on scraps for days. Marcus felt a rage building inside him. Not at the girl, not even at her mother, but at himself. How had he been so blind? He lived in this massive estate, threw elaborate parties where hundreds of dollars of food went to waste, and never once questioned what happened to his staff after they left each day. "Sophia, does your mama know you're here?" Marcus asked, though he already suspected the answer. The girl shook her head frantically. "No, sir. She'd be so upset. She works very hard to keep this job. We need it. Our apartment is very small, and sometimes the heat doesn't work. But Mama says it's better than nothing. She says you pay her fairly, and we should be grateful." Marcus swallowed hard against the lump forming in his throat. Fair. He paid Rosa what the agency recommended for housekeepers, never thinking to ask if it was enough to actually live on. He suddenly remembered how Rosa always volunteered for extra shifts, how she never took the leftovers other staff members regularly packed up, how she'd once politely declined when he offered her lunch. Pride. She'd been too proud to ask for help, too afraid of seeming ungrateful or needy. "How did you get here tonight?" Marcus asked, trying to piece together the situation. Sophia's eyes dropped to the floor. "Mama's working at the hotel tonight. She has another job after she leaves here. Our neighbor watches me, but she fell asleep. I was so hungry, and I remembered Mama saying there was always food in your trash that was still good. She told me once that rich people throw away more food in a day than we eat in a week. The words cut through him like broken glass. She was right, horrifyingly right. Just this evening, his chef had prepared an elaborate dinner for a business associate who'd canceled at the last minute. The entire meal, probably $200 worth of food, had gone straight into the garbage. Marcus made a decision in that moment, one that would change everything. The girl's name was Sophia, and she was the daughter of his head maid, Rosa Martinez. Marcus had hired Rosa 6 months ago, impressed by her work ethic and attention to detail. She was always the first to arrive and last to leave, never asking for anything extra, never complaining. Now, pieces of a devastating puzzle clicked into place. Sophia explained through quiet sobs that her mother worked 3 jobs: his estate during the day, a hotel at night, and weekend cleaning gigs. Rosa's husband had died 2 years ago, leaving mountains of medical debt. They lived in a cramped studio apartment across town, and most days Rosa chose between paying rent or buying food. Mama brings home leftovers when she can, Sophia whispered. But she says we can't ask for more. She says you've already been too kind giving her this job. Tonight she was too tired to bring anything, and I saw the lights were off, so I thought. Marcus sat down on the cold floor beside the frightened child, his expensive silk pajamas forgotten. His company had just closed a deal worth hundreds of millions, yet under his own roof, a child was eating from his garbage. Sophia, he said gently, you're never stealing when you take food in this house. Do you understand? Never. Sophia looked at him with confusion mixed with hope, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. Her small hands still trembled, clutching the bread like it might disappear. Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and gently brushed a tear from her cheek. Tell me about your mama, he said softly, trying to ease her fear. What time does she get home from the hotel? Around 3 in the morning, Sophia replied, her voice steadier now. Sometimes 4. Then she sleeps for 2 hours and comes back here at 6. She says sleep is a luxury we can't afford right now. She promises it won't always be like this. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Rosa arrived at his estate at 6 every morning, which meant she was running on 2 hours of sleep most days. He thought about his own complaints when he only got 6 hours, how he'd joke with his executive team about being exhausted. He didn't know the meaning of the word. What about school? Marcus asked. Do you go to school, Sophia? The girl nodded enthusiastically, the first genuine smile crossing her face. Yes, I love school. The cafeteria gives me free lunch because Mama filled out papers. That's my favorite part of the day. They have pizza on Fridays and sometimes chocolate milk. My teacher, Mrs. Chun, is really nice. She gave me a winter coat last year when mine got too small. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. The teacher had to provide his employee's daughter with a coat. The shame of it washed over him in waves. He thought about the climate-controlled wine cellar in his basement, worth more than most people earned in a year, while Sophia went without basic necessities. Does your mama know you love school so much? He asked. I don't tell her everything, Sophia admitted, picking at the hem of her nightgown. She cries sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. She feels bad that we can't afford things like field trips or the book fair. I tell her it's okay, that I don't need those things, but I can tell it makes her sad. I heard her on the phone with the hospital last week. They want money for Papa's bills. She was begging them for more time. The medical debt. Marcus had built his fortune in healthcare technology, creating systems that supposedly made medicine more accessible and affordable. Yet here was concrete proof of how the system failed real people. Rosa's husband had died, and somehow she was still drowning in the aftermath, working herself to the bone while her daughter scavenged for food. "Sophia, I want you to listen to me carefully," Marcus said, taking both of her small hands in his. "You and your mama are going through something very difficult, but you shouldn't have to face it alone. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Sometimes we don't see what's right in front of us. I made a big mistake by not knowing you were struggling. It's not your fault, Mr. Hartwell," Sophia said quickly, her loyalty to her mother extending even to her mother's employer. "Mama says you're a good boss. She says lots of rich people are mean to their workers, but you always say thank you and remember her name." The bar was so low, it was practically on the ground. He said thank you and remembered her name, and somehow that made him a good boss. Marcus thought about the bonus he'd given himself last quarter, enough to change dozens of lives like Rose's and Sophia's. Instead, it sat in an investment account, accumulating wealth he didn't need while a child ate from his trash. "Come with me," Marcus said, standing and offering his hand. "Let's get you some real food." Rose's scream echoed through the kitchen when she arrived at 5 a.m. and found her daughter asleep in the billionaire's arms on the pantry floor. Marcus had stayed with Sophia all night, afraid she'd be scared alone. "Mr. Hartwell, I'm so sorry. I'll pack our things. Please don't call the authorities," Rosa stammered, her face drained of color. Years of pride and fear collided in her eyes. "Rosa, stop," Marcus said firmly, standing up while cradling the sleeping child. "The only thing you need to be sorry about is not telling me you were struggling. Sit down. We need to talk." Over coffee, Rosa's story poured out. The medical bills, the impossible choice between her daughter's school supplies and electricity, the shame of working in a mansion filled with more food than 50 families could eat while her own child went to bed hungry. She'd been too proud to ask for help, too afraid of losing the best job she'd ever had. "I wanted to give Sophia a better life," Rosa said, wiping her eyes. "Instead, I taught her to sneak food like a criminal." Marcus leaned forward, his jaw set with determination. "That ends today." Rosa looked up, confusion and terror mingling on her exhausted face. She'd barely slept 2 hours before rushing back to the estate, her heart pounding with dread the entire drive. She'd left Sophia with a neighbor, never imagining her daughter would sneak out in the middle of the night. "Please, Mr. Hartwell," Rosa continued, her voice breaking. "I know this looks terrible. I know I should have been watching her better. But I can't lose this job. It's the only stable income one have. The hotel could let me go any day, and the weekend work is unpredictable. If you fire me, we'll lose our apartment. We'll have nowhere to go." Marcus set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "Rosa, I'm not firing you. I'm furious, but not at you. I'm angry at myself." Rosa blinked, clearly not understanding. Her hands shook as she wrapped them around the warm mug he'd placed in front of her. It was the first time she'd ever sat at this kitchen table as anything other than staff cleaning it. "Your daughter told me everything last night," Marcus continued, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "She told me about the 3 jobs, the medical debt, the studio apartment with broken heating. She told me how you give her most of your food and pretend you're not hungry. She told me how her teacher bought her a winter coat because you couldn't afford one. Fresh tears spilled down Rosa's cheeks. She wasn't supposed to notice those things. I tried so hard to protect her from our reality. I wanted her to feel normal, to not know how close we are to losing everything. How much? Marcus asked directly. How much is the medical debt? Rosa hesitated, shame flooding her features. $87,000. My husband Carlos had cancer. The treatments weren't fully covered by insurance. He fought for 8 months. We spent everything we had, borrowed from family, maxed out credit cards. In the end, we lost him anyway, and now I'm drowning in bills I'll never be able to pay. The collection agencies call constantly. I've been making tiny payments just to keep them from suing me. Marcus pulled out his phone and began typing. Rosa watched with growing anxiety, certain he was documenting everything for legal purposes or calculating her final paycheck. What are you doing? She asked quietly. Calling my attorney. Marcus replied. And my accountant. Rosa, I need you to give me the names of every hospital, every collection agency, every creditor you owe. By Monday morning, that debt will be gone. Rosa's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, clattering against the table. What? No, I can't accept that. That's too much money. I can never pay you back. I'm not asking you to pay me back, Marcus said, looking directly into her eyes. I'm asking you to let me fix a problem that should never have existed in the first place. Your husband died serving this country, didn't he? Sophia mentioned he was a veteran. Rosa nodded, unable to speak. Then he deserved better care than he got, and you deserve better than this, Marcus stated. But we're not done talking. You work 3 jobs and still can't afford to feed your daughter properly. That tells me I'm not paying you enough. That tells me the system is broken, and I've been benefiting from that broken system without even realizing it. You pay me fairly, Rosa protested weakly. The agency rate. The agency rate is garbage, Marcus interrupted. It's the bare minimum, designed to maximize profits for people like me, while keeping people like you just desperate enough to accept it. What Marcus did next stunned everyone in his employment. Instead of firing Rosa, he promoted her to estate manager, tripling her salary. He paid off every cent of her medical debt, then handed her the keys to a 4-bedroom cottage on his property grounds. Your daughter will live where you work, he explained. No more 3-hour commutes. No more choosing between jobs. You'll have time to actually be your mother. But Marcus didn't stop there. He enrolled Sophia in the prestigious private school his own nephews attended, covering all expenses. He established a scholarship fund for children of service workers. He started a company program ensuring every employee earned a living wage and had access to emergency financial assistance. His board of directors thought he'd lost his mind. His accountant warned about unnecessary expenses. Marcus fired the accountant. The news spread through his corporate empire like wildfire. Employees who'd worked for Marcus for years suddenly saw a side of him they'd never witnessed. The billionaire who usually focused solely on profit margins and quarterly earnings was now sitting in on interviews with every single staff member at his estate, asking about their families, their struggles, their dreams. How did I not know? Marcus asked his head of human resources during an emergency meeting. How did I build a company worth billions and not realize the people who work in my own home were suffering? His HR director, Patricia Chun, shifted uncomfortably. Sir, with respect, you never asked. Most wealthy employers don't. They hire through agencies, pay the going rate, and assume everyone is fine. Then we're changing everything, Marcus declared. He spent the next week conducting a comprehensive review of every employee's compensation across all his properties and businesses. What he discovered horrified him. Cleaners, gardeners, kitchen staff, security personnel. Many were working multiple jobs just to survive. Some had been with him for years, and he'd never known their stories. Rosa's promotion sent shockwaves through the household staff. At first, some were skeptical. They'd seen wealthy people make grand gestures before, only to lose interest when the novelty wore off. But Marcus proved different. He met personally with Rosa every morning, learning not just about estate management, but about the real lives of the people who made his comfortable existence possible. Mr. Hartwell wants to know if anyone needs help with childcare, Rosa announced at the first staff meeting she led. He's arranging for an on-site daycare center. He's also increasing everyone's base salary by 40%, effective immediately. The room fell silent. Then someone started crying. Then someone else. Within minutes, the entire staff was in tears, including Rosa. Marcus's business partners were less emotional and far more critical. During a tense board meeting, his CFO presented a detailed analysis of the financial damage his new policies would cause. "You're talking about adding millions to our annual operating costs," the CFO argued. "This sets a dangerous precedent. Other employees across all our holdings will expect the same treatment. Shareholders will revolt." Marcus stood up, his expression cold and unyielding. "Let me be clear about something. I didn't build this company to hoard wealth while the people who support my life can't afford to eat. If our business model requires keeping human beings in poverty, then our business model is fundamentally broken. This isn't sustainable." Another board member chimed in. "You're being emotional instead of rational." Emotional? Marcus's voice rose. "An 8-year-old child was eating food from my garbage because I was too blind to see she was starving. That's not an emotional response. That's a moral awakening. And if you can't understand the difference, you're welcome to resign." 3 board members did resign over the following weeks. Marcus replaced them with people who shared his new vision. He hired a consultant who specialized in ethical business practices and began restructuring his entire approach to employment. Sophia's transformation became the face of his initiative. Local news picked up the story, not because Marcus sought publicity, but because Sophia's teacher, Mrs. Chun, wrote a letter to the newspaper praising him. The article went viral, sparking a national conversation about wealth inequality and workers' rights. Marcus received thousands of emails. Some praised him as a hero. Others called him a hypocrite, pointing out that these problems existed long before he decided to care about them. Those criticisms stung because they were true. He couldn't undo years of indifference, but he could change the future. The scholarship fund he established grew beyond his initial vision. Other wealthy individuals, perhaps shamed by the comparison or genuinely inspired, began contributing. Within 6 months, 50 children of service workers across the country were attending quality schools they could never have afforded otherwise. His company's emergency assistance program became a model that other corporations began studying and implementing. Employees could access interest-free loans for medical emergencies, car repairs, or housing deposits, the kinds of financial crises that previously would have destroyed families. 3 years later, Sophia stood in that same kitchen, now hers too, preparing for her first day at middle school. She'd grown confident and healthy, her eyes bright with possibilities her mother once thought impossible. Rosa watched her daughter with tears of joy, still amazed at how one midnight encounter changed everything. She now managed a staff of 20 and had become Marcus's most trusted advisor on employee welfare programs. Marcus walked in, loosening his tie after a long day. "Sophia, ready for tomorrow?" "More than ready, Uncle Marcus," she grinned, the honorary title he'd earned through genuine love, not obligation. That night, he'd come downstairs searching for comfort and found something far more valuable: perspective. The billionaire realized that true wealth wasn't measured in his bank account, but in the lives he could transform with compassion. The little girl hiding in his pantry didn't just change her own destiny, she changed his forever. Sophia had blossomed into a student with a particular talent for mathematics and science. Her teachers regularly praised her curiosity and determination. Just last month, she'd won first place at the regional science fair with a project on sustainable food systems, a topic inspired by her own past experience with food insecurity. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, especially Marcus. "Uncle Marcus, can I ask you something?" Sophia said, pouring herself a glass of orange juice from the refrigerator that once seemed like an impossible luxury. "Always," Marcus replied, sitting down at the kitchen island where he'd shared countless meals with Sophia and Rosa over the years. "My project won, and now I get to present it at the state competition. But some kids at school were saying that I only won because you're rich and famous. They said the judges probably gave me special treatment." Sophia's voice wavered slightly, the old insecurity creeping back in. Marcus felt a flash of anger at those children, but he took a breath and chose his words carefully. "Sophia, let me tell you what I know. Your project was brilliant because you understood the problem intimately. You didn't just research hunger, you lived it. That gave you insights other kids couldn't have. You earned that win." Rosa walked over and put her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Mija, there will always be people who try to diminish your accomplishments. Don't let them. You've worked incredibly hard. Your success is yours." Sophia nodded, her confidence returning. "You're right. I did work hard. And I'm going to win at state too." Marcus smiled. That was the Sophia he knew, resilient and determined. She reminded him so much of Rosa, who'd faced every challenge with quiet strength and unwavering dignity. The changes in the household had been profound. The cottage where Rosa and Sophia lived had become a real home, filled with laughter and warmth. Sophia had her own bedroom, decorated with posters of scientists and mathematicians. She had a desk where she did homework, shelves filled with books, and a closet with clothes that actually fit. Simple things that every child deserved, but that had once seemed like impossible dreams. Rosa had transformed too. The exhaustion that had permanently etched itself into her features 3 years ago had faded. She stood taller now, spoke with authority, and had become an invaluable part of Marcus's organization. Her insights into the real challenges facing working families had reshaped policies across his entire company. "You know what tomorrow is, don't you?" Marcus asked, pulling out his phone to check his calendar. "Monday." Sophia guessed, confused. "It's the anniversary," Rosa said softly. 3 years since the night we found you in the pantry." Sophia's expression shifted, becoming more serious. She rarely talked about that night anymore, but Marcus knew she hadn't forgotten. How could she? It was the night everything changed. "I've been thinking about that night a lot lately," Sophia admitted. "Sometimes I feel guilty. So many kids are still hungry, still struggling like we were. Why did I get lucky? What makes me special?" Marcus leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. You weren't lucky, Sophia. You were brave. You did what you needed to survive, and you gave me the chance to open my eyes. But you're right. There are still too many children like you were. That's why the work continues. Rosa nodded in agreement. That's exactly why we started the foundation. We can't save everyone, but we can save some. And those we save can go on to save others. The foundation Rosa referenced had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a scholarship fund had evolved into a comprehensive organization addressing food insecurity, medical debt, and affordable housing. Rosa served as its director, using her experience to guide its mission. They'd helped over 3,000 families in 3 years. Sophia had even started volunteering there on weekends, sorting donations and helping organize food drives. She'd convinced several of her classmates to join her, turning her personal history into a catalyst for change. I want to do more, Sophia said suddenly. When I grow up, I want to be like you both, someone who actually helps people instead of just talking about it. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. This incredible young woman, who'd once been so desperate she ate from trash, now wanted to dedicate her life to helping others. You're already doing more than you know, Sophia. You inspire people just by being yourself. Rosa wiped away tears, overcome with pride for her daughter and gratitude for the man who'd become family. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful video. Thanks for watching.